Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to this session on new features in OAS 6.4. OAS is the Oracle Analytics Server. We recently upgraded the Oracle Analytics Server. It is now present in all environments all around the world. We originally had said that by December it would be distributed to everybody. It is already done as of this past Sunday. We finished the last data centers, and it affects the data visualization for all products on the higher education platform. That's Alma, Primo V, Rialto, Leganto, Esploro. We will be focusing today primarily on Alma, also doing an example in Primo V. And without further ado, let's begin. We will briefly be looking at this PowerPoint primarily just for some structure, but all of our examples will be in our live demo environment. So, what we'll be talking about today, first we'll give a brief introduction, then we're going to go through what is new in Oracle Analytics Server. Now, we're not going to be covering absolutely every new thing in the Oracle Analytics Server 6.4. There are some nuances, by the way, within Oracle Analytics Server 6.4. For example, if I were to come into just any website and do a search, for example, I'll just pop right in here. If I were to write OAS 6.4, what's new? So there's already a lot of stuff out there. Here we are, Oracle Analytics Server 6.4 releases live. There's a blog explaining. Here's another one from somewhere else. There's a lot of little nuances within versions of OAS 6.4. So if you do read one of these blogs or go to one of these other websites, you may see something slightly different than what we're showing here. I even found things that we have new that are not mentioned there, and then the opposite. So just be aware that there are various nuances of what's around there. In any case, let's begin. If anyone has any questions or comments, send them in the chat, and I will be periodically stopping to look at the chat. So as I already stated, we've already completed the upgrade. It's already present in everyone's environment, even though here it says during September to December. It actually was between September and December. It just happens that we finished before December. And we're going to be looking at some selected highlights as the second bullet states. I have sent out in the chat a link to this presentation, so you're welcome to look at that. Those of you who are watching the recording, you can see in the description of the session, within the recording in the description, a link also to the presentation. So let's jump in and take a look. So let's say I want to come into data visualization. So that's the same. Within Alma, we go to analytics, data visualization. Anybody with the role designs analytics can go in and click data visualization, role-based, and we're in the data visualization. It's the same entrance. We got those pop-ups with these little sayings here. In this case, does data by happiness was the first one. Then we pop in. Now, the first difference is what used to be called projects are now called workbooks. It's just an aesthetic change, terminology change. You can see here it says workbooks and reports, favorite workbooks. And when I click create, it states workbook instead of project. It's the same project we knew, it's just called a workbook. So let's create one. We'll click workbook, and that's the first change. So let's head back to the PowerPoint. Like we say here, it used to be called a project. Now it's called a workbook. Semantics only, and here also. So the first feature we're going to look at is a new feature in the Oracle Analytics Server 6.4, which allows us to add notes to a workbook. And the notes are useful to give the viewer of the report, of the workbook, added information about specific fields or one specific field. And let's do an example. So let's make a report. Let's choose, for example, the fulfillment subject area. And let's say now I want to make a report here. I'll get, for example, I'm going to make a workbook. Let me take loans not in house. I'm going to drag this to the canvas. Now, this isn't a session on how to use data visualization. It's a session on what's new in the Oracle Analytics Service 6.4. However, along the way, I'll point out what am I doing here. So I'm going to drag this. It's a measure. We know it's a measure because it has this number sign in front of it. You'll see others here do not. These are attributes with the A. So I'm going to drag this measure over to the canvas. Now, by default, when you drag something into the canvas, it automatically gives a suggested visualization. In this case, the suggested visualization is a tile. It says here, auto visualization tile. When we put in a measure, it gives a tile. And I'm going to change that to table, at least for starters. And let's say we're only interested in 2002. So if we're only interested in 2002, I will add a filter. Now I can add a filter in a couple of different ways. One way, I'm going to do an expression filter. Expression filter allows us to write an SQL. So I will say I want the loan year. So we have a folder here, loan date, and I'm going to say I want the loan year. Loan year equals 2022. I will validate, check it's okay. Oh, that's something else. Validate. Okay, it says connects calculation validated and apply. Okay, so now it's filtered by 2022. And let's put in, for example, something we're going to want to use this new note for. Let's put in the LC classifications. We want to know what are the big loans in the LC classification. So we'll say LC classification group 1 we want and classification code. So I'll drag that in. We can drag it right into the canvas like I just did, or we can drag it here. This is called the grammar panel. Drag it into the grammar panel. So now we have the classification code, the group 1, and the loans in-house. Let's say we want just the top 10. And we don't want one which is called unknown, which is cases where there is no classification, no 050 in the bib record, for lack of a more fancy way to say it. So let's first of all say we want the top 10. So I'm going to take this loans. Now, previously we would drag this up to the top and make a filter, which we can still do. However, we can also right-click it here in the grammar panel and also create a filter. So it's like we dragged it up. And here I'll say, instead of doing a range, I'll say I want filter type top, bottom, N. And I'll say I want the top 10. So now I've got the top 10. And we said we didn't want this unknown here. So I'm going to right-click that unknown and say remove selected. So now it added another one here, unknown. Again, I can right-click anything here. First choose it, right-click, and remove selected. I could also say that's the classification code is unknown, the group 1 is unknown. So I could also just bring it up here and do a filter and say everything except or not that. There's a lot of ways we can do it. Unknown. So there it is. We could grab that unknown and say we don't want unknown or we do want unknown. Exclude selections. So now I have everything except for the unknown. So here we have the top 10, except for unknown. Let's sort this descending so we have the highest on top. I'll click the top of the column, sort it descending, and let's save it first of all, just in case something happens, so we'll have it. So this is also new, the icons. I would call it a look and feel. It's more or less the same. We had a save and a save as before. They simply weren't with this icon with a little pull down box. So now it's a save icon with a pull down box, and we're just going to say save as. And let's save this. I'm going to save it under Ex Libris Development here. So let's go to Reports and Ex Libris Development. And you, of course, will have your own folders. Okay, we'll put it here, and I'll put it in my folder, and I will put it under DV. So let's call this, now we already had a webinar this afternoon. So this morning, excuse me. So I will call this webinar 2, as opposed to the webinar 1s we've been having. Well, we already did this morning. Webinar 2, we'll call this most loans classifications. Okay, save. I'll even call that 1 just in case we start playing around with it. Let's add here another visualization. So we'll say duplicate visualization, edit, duplicate. And in this one, we'll change the visualization type, and let's say we want a stacked bar, a horizontal bar. Okay, and we'll right click and sort this one also by number of loans, high to low. Okay, now we're going to add our notes. Now, just so and that's the new feature we're talking about now, the ability to add a note to a visualization. So first of all, just so I have more on the screen, I'm going to collapse. This is called the data panel all the way on the left. This is called the grammar panel with the fields that I've chosen. And I can either drag these to close them, or on the bottom right here, we have toggle data panel, toggle grammar panel. My mouse is all the way on the bottom right, and I'm going to toggle them both so they close. Okay, now let's add the note. Now the note is used so that the user, the consumer, the official name of somebody who uses the data visualization but doesn't create the visualizations, is a consumer. Same in analytics. So here we've got, I'm in the third icon from the top right. I'm clicking that little arrow going down and add note. Once I clicked add note, you can see in the middle of the screen, I've got a place to type, and I've got ability to format the note. So let's say I want to add a note of what is this DU history of Oceania, the second one, because that's very big. Someone might be wondering, what is this DU history of Oceania? So I'm going to write a little note here for more information about DU, or let's say about classification DU, see here. And I'm going to make that here be a hyperlink in a moment. But we can do a lot of formatting here. So I'm going to take this, let's make it a tad bigger. I'll make it Comic Sans, and in the size, I'll say I want 14. Okay, so now it's a little bigger. Let's even make it 18. Okay, and we'll make it a little larger here. Okay, for more information about classification, do you see here? Let's now go get a web page. So I'm just going to write here, classification LCDU. Let's see what it's going to give us. Usually I get ones from the library thing. Here we go. So I'm going to take this. This is an explanation of the DU in case a user now wants to see it. I could even make a general note saying for information about these classification codes, see, and point them to something more general. Either way. Okay, so now I'm going to click in here so I can edit again. I'll take this click here, and here's the hyperlink. I'll add a link to that web address that I just copied. I put it in there by accident. Okay. And ooh, what happened there? Let's do that again. I pasted it in the wrong place. I'm going to say see here. Now I'm going to select that here, click this, and paste. Okay. So now it's got a hyperlink. And now there's something called a data connector where I can connect data to this note. Let me get the official word for it. The official word is a note. Okay. I saw a data note, connector note before. So we're going to make that note now. I mean, that connection. So in order to drag this to a specific field, we can stand on, put the mouse on to be more exact, put the mouse on one of these little circles in the sides, and then just drag it. So I'm going to drag it right to this DU. And now we have a line here. I can remove that line, by the way, by right-clicking it and doing detach from data. Let me save this. So now we have a workbook, which is showing the top 10 LC classifications as far as number of loans. So the institution now knows what topics are really being used, at least among the physical items, because these are loans. And the user who sees this can click here. I'm going to click it. First, I'm going to close this other tab so you won't think it's already going to that other tab. Let me minimize this a tad, close that. Okay. So now if I click this, it opens in a new tab. You don't need to do that target equals blank. Those of you who play around with HTML know when you make an href link, you do target underline blank, and it opens in a new tab. This automatically opens in a new tab. So again, the user is in here, clicks see here, and it automatically opens. Now this would be useful, for example, a user who is a consumer, someone who doesn't have the designs analytics role, would be able to view this and automatically have that link. In fact, let's make an analytics object with this data visualization. A couple of months ago, maybe even a year ago already, we added the ability to take a data visualization project like this, a workbook, excuse me, and make it a linkable within Alma. So from in Alma here, I'm going to say analytics, analytics objects list. In this one here that I just saved, webinar 2, most loan classifications, let me just save that. Okay. I'm going to add a new analytics object, and it's going to be type data visualization. So let's say, let that spin around a tad. Okay. I'll call this second webinar loans by LC group. Okay. And where did I put that? I put that in here, and we called it Webinar 2 Most Loans Classifications 1. It's going to be type data visualization project. I'll give it a description the same as the name. Now I want to say who will be able to access this? What roles will the person have? For example, I don't want everyone I don't want it cluttering up everybody's analytics links, which we're going to look at in a moment. So I'll say in this case, people dealing with fulfillment will see it. So we'll say add role. That's the role of the user who will be able to see this. And I will say fulfillment. I'll take all these. So now anyone with any of these fulfillment roles, add role, will be able to view this workbook from within Alma. And we're going to take a look at that. So I'll save it. Okay, let's give it a shot. I'm going to log out and log in because if we add a new object here, we don't automatically see it until we log out and log in. So I will sign out and sign in. And let's say analytics. There it is. There's our link here. Second webinar, loans by LC Group. A user comes in and clicks this. And let me close my browser and reopen my browser just to be sure of something going on there. And I will pop right back in here. Excuse the big list of favorites. Okay, boom. I'm going to go to the chat in a moment. I see some questions came in. Okay, let's analytics. There it is. Spinning around on top. Okay, it's coming in and almost there as it says. And the user gets the report. The user has the note. The note has the hyperlink. We click the hyperlink and there we go. It clicks to the hyperlink that we put inside the note. So that's the first feature of the note. Let's just run through this, make sure we covered everything. Then I'll stop for questions. Then we'll go to the next one. So we clicked the third icon from the top right. We did add note. We put the note there in the box. We saw that there's different formatting options. We selected certain text and made a link. We clicked OK, so we added the hyperlink. Then we saw we had the hyperlink. And then we made this data note. We stood on one of the little circles on the side, dragged it, and then the user sees the note. The note with the line going to the specific field. Okay, let me stop and take a look at the questions that came in the chat. So we'll say chat. Okay, let's take a look at what we got here. And all the chats will be handled anonymously. I won't say anyone's name, so feel free to say whatever you'd like. Can the note be displayed visible only when mouse hovering on the data point? Not that I'm aware of. I'm not aware of saying only display the note. Let's go back to that. Only display the note if my mouse is somewhere. I'm not aware of a method to do that. We can detach from the data, get rid of the line. We can delete the note. By the way, I just hovered over it and clicked this little down arrow. Then, of course, we can edit, but I'm not aware of a way to say only display it if the user puts a mouse in a certain place. Someone says, I'm hoping we get to see this from the consumer's point of view. Okay, so we did. You must have written that perhaps before we went in and saw it from the consumer's point of view. Someone said, if it's now a workbook in DV, will that be renamed in the analytics objects too? That's a good point. I'm going to take this. We didn't have a plan to do that, but you have a very valid point. Thanks for pointing that out. So right now, when someone comes into the analytics objects list, this is called a DV project, but in actuality, it has changed. So that means if we want to really be aligned, we would need to change this type here to a data visual to be called data visualization workbook. I'm just going to make myself a tiny little note here for later to take care of that. Okay. There's currently no plans, but it's a good valid point, and we will see about that. Okay, someone says that's kind of nice because then it's not automatically added to everyone's dashboard. Yeah, that's the point of being able to use the roles that only relevant people see it. Somebody says, is there a way to hide the note temporarily if I wanted to take a screenshot of that data vs that note is in the way of the data? No, I'm not aware of a way to temporarily delete it. If your purpose is to take a screenshot, you could just delete it, take your screenshot, and not save it. But I'm not a way to say temporarily hide. Someone says, is there any plans to allow DV for Alma Primo to be able to be shown externally, such as a website? I'm not 100% sure what you mean by the question, but like analytics, you can always use a API to retrieve things and then display it wherever you'd like. People have done that. It's a very popular thing. Consistency in labels is appreciated. Okay, thanks. Publishing dashboards to live website. I want to focus specifically on the new features of the Oracle Analytics Server 6.4. Those of you who have interest in data visualization in general, I would suggest you go to youtube.com. You go to our channel at Ex Libris Limited, and within there, if you search, this is our Ex Libris channel right here. If you search right here for data visualization, right here, visualization, you'll have a lot of training materials. These are webinars we gave in the past, instructional videos. You can also go to developersexlibrisgroup.com, and within the blog, you can also here just type either DV or data visualization, and you'll have, oops, let me cancel that. You'll have a series of how to use the data visualization. Here we go. These are all going to be about data visualization, how to use the functions, how to create a bar graph, using filters, an introduction, etc. I'd like to keep this one specifically on the new features. If there's a desire to do another session about using data visualization, let us know. I'm even going to go boldly, and in the chat, I don't want to regret this, but if you think that having a session specifically about data visualization and not about the new features, write to me and tell me. Clarivate. That's my email. And then we can do on that. But let's try to focus here on the new features. Okay, anyway, let's go on. So we're already halfway through, so I want to make sure I cover the main stuff. There's a new visualization called the stacked area. You can see here on the left what we used to have before OAS 6.4. It's a good thing I took the screenshot because I was expecting to still have some environments in the old data visualization. And they've all been migrated. So we've only got the new one. You can see there's a new one here called stacked area. So let's use the same one we've got here now. And I can take one of these and, for example, change the visualization. I click the little icon here on the top that's called visualization right here, change visualization type. And there's a stacked area here. And it's not always relevant. It depends on what kind of data you have. but pointing out here, that's a stacked area. It didn't exist in the previous OAS, and it does exist now. You can see my note still automatically followed the where it was. It's in the same field. Interesting. If I come along here now and I'm going to change my sort. I'm going to do some QA on the data visualization. I'm going to change the sort from low to high. So that means this DU that it's pointing to, the note, it's going to be on the other side. Let's see if the connecting line also moves. Low to high. Yes, it did. Okay. So that's just something small to point out, but there is a new visualization, and that's the stacked area. Somebody asked, what is the difference between analytics and data visualization? They have different ways of visualizing the data. For example, here I have one worksheet with a table and a graph. When I'm in analytics, I can also do that, but it's a little different. Different ways of filtering, different ways of displaying data. And other features which are mentioned in the blog, for example, a forecast exists in data visualization, doesn't exist in analytics, etc. Dashboards are in analytics and not in data visualization. However, we can put data visualization worksheets in an Alma Analytics dashboard, but let's not go too crazy right now, but time permitting, we will do that. So let's move on now to the next big feature. And this is the list box. This is probably, I would say, the biggest feature, the biggest new feature in OAS 6.4. And it allows to essentially have a prompt within the workbook. And the prompt applies to all of the visualizations in the workbook. Let's make a new one with this list box, and let's see how it works. So I will close this one. I'm going to go home. So to go home, I'm going to click this. I don't want to save my latest changes where I changed this visualization, so I'm going to say don't change. Okay. So now I'm home. And I'm going to create a new workbook now. This time I'm going to include a list box. So we'll say create workbook. And let's say now I'll go to subject areas. Let's say now I want to use the usage data subject area, usage data, add to workbook. Okay, so now I've got a workbook here. We're in the usage data subject area. Let's say I want to take, now these are the counter report data. So I'm going to take within usage data details release 5. Let's take the TRB1. That's for ebooks. Again, I dragged in a measure. It automatically gave me a tile. I need to see the grammar panel to get that tile. So I'm going to toggle it down below, toggle grammar panel. There she is. So now it says here it's a tile. Again, I'm going to change it to a table because it's easier to start playing with the data on a table, for me anyway. And let's say we're interested only in 2022 right now. So let's do a filter. I'll say usage date. So we have a folder here, usage date. And I'll put the usage date filter up on top here, and we'll say is equal to current year. And now let's say we want the platforms. What platforms were used are really included in the counter report, but what platforms had what amount of TRB1 total item requests? That's a usage measure on ebooks. So I'll take the platform and throw that in. I'm going to drag it. I can either drag it right to here in the grammar panel, or I can drag it right here to the table. Okay, and let's sort this. Sort it descending. So we have high to low. So we see who are the big ones on top. And let's say we want now just the top 20. So again, we can say is in top like we did before. I'll take these measures, right click it, and say create filter. And here it is on top. I could do I want them within a range, or we can say I want from here, the menu, filter type top bottom. And then I can say I can either want it in the top or in the bottom. I'll say I want the top 20. Hold on, 20. Okay. So now we've got the top 20. And let's say we want also another visualization, because I'm going to add the list box, but I want to show that when we add the list box, it affects all visualizations on the data panel in the workbook worksheet. Here we go. So I'll duplicate this one. The easiest way to make another visualization is to duplicate the existing one. For me anyway. There's other ways, but I like to duplicate it. So I'll click these three dots and I'll say edit, duplicate visualization. And let's put this one in another format. So we'll say change visualization type. Let's take a nice one here. Let's do, what's this one here? A combo. Let's see what that is. Okay, let's make it a horizontal stacked. I always use horizontal stacked, and then sometimes I say, let's try a different one, and I always come back to the horizontal stacked. Okay, and let's sort this one also descending. Sort by high to low. And let's get rid of the grammar panel here. So I'm going to toggle the grammar panel just so I have more space. Okay. And here we go. We're going to put in a list box. So from the left column here, which is the data panel, I'm going to choose this tab here where it says visualizations. Then I'm going to choose the list box. Now I could scroll through here and look for the list box. Here it is. Or I could just type it right up here, L-I-S-T, and I get everything with the word list. I'm going to drag it in. I'll put it on top just so it's more aesthetic. I'm going to close my team. No, I don't want to close that because it could affect this meeting. Okay, so now I've got a list box here. Now I want to say, what field do I want to appear here in the list box? So I will put in there the platform because that's what I want somebody to be able to choose. So we'll say back to the data. I'm changing in the data panel all the way on the left. I'm now choosing the tab data. And now we'll take this platform and we're going to drag it to the category. You'll see when I drag it here, we have filters and categories. I'm putting it in the category. By the way, if we had the grammar panel here, you'll see also the list box has category and filter. The platform is in the category. So now the top 20 of them automatically appear here. I just clicked I'm going to click here. I'm clicking inside the list, and then I have the data panel, the list of values. So if I take that list of values, let's say, I'll make it larger. I'll toggle the panels here. And now I can come and choose whichever I want. And I'll say, I only want, let's say I want all of these Oxford ones only. Okay, just the Oxford ones. So now I've chosen only the Oxford ones. And then I can come back and come along and say, well, I actually want add them all. So the user on his or her own can automatically do the filtering. Let's save this. I didn't even save it yet. And let's save it in the same location. By the way, I can display this as a list also. It's a little easier. For me anyway. Okay, and we'll call this Webinar 2. I'm going to take this name and call it Webinar 2, and I'll call it ebook usage with listbox. Okay. I'll leave the one there in case we keep playing. Now, let's see what's going to happen if we make this a analytics object here. So I'm going to say add new object again. And we'll say ebook usage. I'll call it webinar 2 ebook usage. We'll go to that folder again. We'll take that report. We'll make this a data visualization project, even though it's really a workbook. And I'll give it the same description. Now, the people who will be using this, I would imagine they'll be electronic inventory manager, electronic inventory operator, maybe acquisitions as well, because they'll want to know what's being used, what's not being used, but I'll give them these. Okay. Repository manager, repository administrator. Okay, that should suffice. Add role. And I will save this. Make sure everything's correct. Data visualization project. Chose the right worksheet, workbook, save. Okay. Everything is done. Now let's give it a shot. I'm going to close this. And let's open it back up. Just to refresh everything, you don't see the projects until you log out and log in. And we should see now my user has those roles that I gave it. So we should see now the link. Then when we go in, I as consumer should be able to use that list box to do some filtering on the workbook. Let's try it out. So if I choose analytics, there it is, webinar 2 ebook usage. I click that and let's try that again because it's giving me a blank here. And it might just need to refresh a tad. And wow, we only got 15 minutes left. Giving these webinars is like going into a time warp. We've already been here 45 minutes. Can you imagine? Okay, let's give it a try. So analytics, there's the link. And the fastest time is giving a webinar. I think the slowest time is when you're on an airplane. Time goes forever when you're on an airplane. Okay, let's let this open. Be kind to yourself today. That's a nice one. Talk data to me. Oh, okay. This, by the way, is the data visualization. It's not Alma. Okay, she's opening. Let her go. We can see up here it's pointing to the correct path. Okay. And then we get to this. We get to uh, the workbook. And here we can do the filtering and say, like we did before, I clear all these, or I can clear just certain ones that I say I don't want. I don't want the emerald. I don't want, I'll be careful who I choose so it doesn't look like I'm saying, let's say I don't want the Oxford ones. I do want the other ones. I want the emerald, and I'm going to remove the Oxford. Before we did only Oxford. Now we're removing the Oxford. So I've made the change. And now we no longer have the Oxford here, and it updated both the table and the stacked map. Both visualizations have been updated. Okay, so that's the list box. I'm just going to briefly go through here to make sure we covered everything. Allows the end user to choose values, so it's similar to a prompt. We made a report here with the platform and the TRB1, and then we dragged in the list box. Then within the list box, we added the platform to the category. And then we saw that we can add or remove certain values. And when we do that, both visualizations get updated. We can also look at the list box properties if we want to make it look a little more aesthetic, we'll say. We can select it. I'm going to bring back the data panel. On the bottom, I'm clicking toggle data panel. So when I select the list box here, on the bottom left, we have values. One of the values, for example, is background, and it's by auto. If I click the auto and say custom, now I can customize the background. So I'm going to click that fill color, and I can choose another color here. Say OK, and now I change the background. And there's all kinds of other values here you can play around with: image source, color transparency, multi-selection. You can say, can a user choose multi or only one? Okay, so that covers everything I wanted to show about the list box. I see some comments came in. Conditional formatting, I definitely want to show the conditional formatting. Let me see what kind of questions and comments came in. I'll head over to the chat. Okay. This seems very similar to how dashboards operate, just cleaner. Interesting you say that, because all of these can be put inside a dashboard as well. In fact, I would love to do that, but I want to make sure we can do the conditional formatting. Let me see what else is here. Formatting's at the bottom of the data panel for numbers. Click the number sign. Okay, thanks. I assume that was a comment and not a question. Could you demo how to change it? Okay. I don't want to get into demoing things that aren't specifically related to the data visualization right now. I mean, that aren't specifically related to the new features, just due to time. Let's take this report. I want to show the conditional formatting now. So I'm going to take this. First of all, I'll save it. And let's say save as now, because I'm going to show the conditional formatting rather than making a whole new report, a whole new workbook, excuse me. I'll use this one. And let's say I'll save as. And instead of with list box, I'm going to call this with conditional formatting. Okay, I know I might not have spelled that properly, but that's all right. All right, so let's just play around a bit here. I will, it's saving. Hold on a minute. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this one. Delete this visualization. And I'll get rid of this one, delete visualization. Okay, let's say I want anything less than, let's sort this first of all by platform. And let's say I want anything less than 1,000 to be a certain color or a certain font or who knows what. So for that, we can do conditional formatting. The conditional formatting is done with, it looks like a stoplight, but it's only got 2 lights. But it looks like, you know, when you're at a junction and there's red, yellow, and green, that's what it looks like, but there's only 2. So this allows us to do the conditional formatting. So I'll click the conditional formatting, and now I can make a rule. There's conditional formatting also in analytics, and it works more or less the same way. I will call this, what were my numbers here? I'm going to call it less than 1,000 different font. That's what we'll call it. Less than 1,000 different appearance, I'll say. Okay, and then we choose a measure. Now I only have one measure right now using, but I could choose measures also that aren't in this specific visualization. I'll choose this TRB1 that we're using. And then I can say these, if it's more than, less than, da 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 da. I'm going to say if it's less than or equal to 1,000, then I want to do something. So what am I going to do? I'll make it yellow. Let's make it yellow. Okay. I can also play around with the fonts and make it bold, for example. And okay. Now I need to give it actual values. So now let's come in here for a moment. So let's go up. Just so we follow the same ways here. So we clicked the thing that looks like a stoplight at a junction. We gave it a name. We chose a measure. We said it's more than or less than whatever value. I put in here 30. We're going to put in 1,000. Then we chose the formatting, and then we had a legend. Let's do it again. Okay. Save. Great. Okay, so now anything less than 1,000 is yellow. So somebody who's scrolling through this, if I get rid of this filter of the top 20, or if I change this to top 50, then we'll have many more. Okay. So now we'll have more yellows. Oh, those are all yellow. And then as we scroll through quickly and easily, someone can see all of those that are less than 1,000. And we could have done the same. More than 10,000 would be a different color too. So that's how we can do the conditional formatting. I see there's 5 minutes left, which really is, let's do it real quick. I want to put these into a dashboard. We're going to do this very, very quickly. So here, because somebody brought up the issue of dashboards, I'm going to go into analytics now. So we're going to say design analytics. It's not going to be the most aesthetic dashboard because I just want to show that we can put these in dashboards. I will say create dashboard. I'm in analytics now, not in data visualization. I'm in analytics now creating the dashboard. And I'm going to choose the location. Browse the catalog. Now, this was technically speaking, this was possible to add what was called then projects, now called workbooks. It was possible to add DV workbooks to a dashboard. It was kind of clunky and you had to do it certain ways. Now it's really all built in. So I'm coming to dashboards and let me just see where I am. Ex Libris UL dashboards. Okay, and I will call, okay, we'll give it a name in a moment. And I'll call this afternoon dashboard because for me it's afternoon. We had a morning session. It's actually evening. And now I'm going to say add content now. So just like the way I would add analytics reports to a dashboard, same way to add data visualization workbooks to a dashboard. So by default, he's giving me page 1. And I'll come down here and I'll navigate to where we saved everything now, which was under reports, Ex Libris development, and Yoel and DV. So we made today webinar, here's webinar 2 with conditional formatting. Then we'll say add a new page. And I'll call this ebook usage. And we'll drag in this one here, the ebook usage, very, very basic dashboard. Then we'll make another page. We'll call this one loans by classification. Drag that one in. Save. So now we have a full dashboard here, which is including only data visualization workbooks. It doesn't have any analytics reports. It's an analytics dashboard, but it's including data visualization workbooks. So here's our first one. Oh, it's even got the note there. What's going to happen if I click the note? I've never tried this before. I'm going to click. This is interesting. I'm going to click a DV workbook note inside inside a page of an analytics dashboard. Opens in a new tab. Beautiful. I see a lot of potential for that actually. I'll save that for later, but I see a lot of potential there of what could be done here. Then we've got the ebook usage tab. That's going to bring us to one with the list box. And now let's say I want only the EBSCO one. So I can pull this down and say the Oxford one. So I'll clear all these and I'll say, just give me these Oxford ones. So now I'm using the list box of the data visualization workbook inside the analytics dashboard. And then we have the first one, which we didn't rename. It was by default page 1. And that has the, oh, that's the one with the conditional formatting. Anything less than 1,000 is yellow. Okay, that brings us to local time 17:59. Let me see if there's any more urgent chats here. Again, I purposely didn't cover using DV in general. I saw some questions come in about DV in general. Let's have a separate session if that's what's desired, and we can have something about that. I don't see anything. Someone says, will the process for fill cover ever apply to Alma Analytics color selection? I love that change. Well, there are ways to do different kinds of formatting in the analytics. I'm not sure exactly what area you're talking about, but it is possible to do some formatting there. Okay, so that brings us to the end. And thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see each other in our next sessions. The recording of this will be posted, and we'll send out that it's been posted. Have a nice day, everybody. Bye bye.